For someone like Prime Minister Modi, Lee Kuan Yew was unique because he actually embodied change in a lifetime. That he did something so dramatic within the space of a few years that for any political leader in Asia or other parts of the world who's trying to modernize their society, Lee Kuan Yew really stood out. When I finished my tenure in Singapore, I was posted as ambassador to China. And when he learned of it, he spent some time talking to me about China. It was a subject where he had a lot of views and a lot of experience. And I must say, my farewell call on him, I think which was supposed to be about half an hour, ended as a 2-hour discussion. And I would say probably it was the best value for time that I got in my life. And I must also say that a lot of what he said, the insights he gave me, I would remember them in my stay in China. And I was struck, I think it was not surprising because I came from Singapore, at how much of an influence Singapore had on China. I met officials in Chinese provinces, local governments, in companies, many of whom had been in this institution or in other institutions in Singapore. When you went to Chinese cities, you went into a Chinese city and said, well, this looks familiar, but I've never been here before. You looked at a Chinese airport and said, oh, that also looks familiar. I wonder, where that came from. And the ripples of Suzhou, I think in many ways, has had a huge impact on the Chinese industrialization and manufacturing process. But I certainly, and I grant you, I had a predisposition here, but I certainly left China with a sense that the impact that Singapore had in helping China make that transition in the Deng years into the Jiang Zemin and later years was really very, very profound. So when I was asked to speak on what was the impact that Lee Kuan Yew had on the world, if he could impact, and I'm giving you 2 examples, 2.5 billion people, what more can I say? He not only built brand Singapore, but he's also in many ways the brand builder for Asia's modern leadership. After the Second World War and as colonialism came to an end, you actually had a first generation of Asian leaders, Nehru in India, Mao in China, Sukarno in Indonesia. But Lee Kuan Yew was part of a second generation. And the difference that he made was that more than the first generation leaders, his USP in a sense was he took the spirit of the people and channeled it not into identities and nationalism, but more into success, into building a quality of life, and into a sense of competing with the rest of the world.